Earth's outcast fighter, Mara, stood at the edge of the barren Deathworld plain, her eyes scanning the jagged rocks and red dust that stretched to the horizon. The wind howled like a warning, but she did not flinch. Since she was a child, everyone had laughed at her, calling her weak, clumsy, and useless in the harsh survival training of the Deathworld colony. Even the adults shook their heads at her attempts to fight, and the other children whispered behind her back, "She will never survive here." But Mara carried a secret strength, one no one could see yet. She was small, yes, but her mind was sharp, and her reflexes were faster than anyone in the colony could imagine. Still, for now, the villagers only saw what they wanted: an outcast, someone to mock, someone to underestimate. That day, the colony's leader, Commander Ral, had gathered the young fighters for a dangerous exercise. "Today, you will cross the Dead Canyon and return with the energy cores," he said. His eyes lingered on Mara, as if expecting her to fail, and she felt the sting of doubt, but she clenched her fists and nodded silently. The Dead Canyon was no joke, filled with razor-sharp cliffs, hidden traps, and creatures that hunted anything that moved. Most of the fighters ran in groups, hoping to survive together. But Mara preferred to go alone. She knew she had to prove herself, not to them, but to herself. As the fighters entered the canyon, Mara moved quietly, watching and learning. The rocks shifted under her feet, and she ducked as a sudden blast of wind nearly knocked her off balance. Behind her, she heard the laughter of the other fighters. "Look at her. She'll be the first to fall." Mara ignored them, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the canyon, and she froze. From the shadows, a death crawler, a six-legged predator with sharp claws and glowing eyes, emerged, its gaze locked on her, ready to strike. The other fighters screamed and scattered, but Mara's mind raced. She remembered the training drills, the lessons no one believed she could follow. With a quick dodge and a swift throw of her plasma knife, she hit the creature's weak spot. The death crawler shrieked and fell, motionless. Her heart pounded, but Mara did not smile. She knew this was only the beginning. Word of her victory would spread, and the whispers would grow louder. Some would be afraid, others jealous. But one thing was certain: Mara was no longer just a girl to laugh at. Hours later, she returned to the colony, carrying the energy cores alone. Commander Ral raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You survived?" he asked. His voice carried doubt, but also a hint of respect. The other children stared at her with wide eyes, and for the first time, no one dared to laugh. That night, Mara sat by the edge of the canyon again, looking at the stars. She knew this world would not go easy on her, and neither would the enemies lurking beyond the colony. But she had a fire inside her now, a fire that would not be extinguished by mockery or fear. Somewhere, deep in the Deathworld shadows, creatures and rival fighters waited, unaware of the outcast girl who was about to become their greatest nightmare. Mara smiled faintly. The real fight was just beginning. Mara woke before dawn, her body still aching from the journey through the Dead Canyon. The colony was quiet, but her mind was racing. She knew this was no time to rest. The real challenge was coming, and this time, it would not be alone. Rumors had spread fast, whispers of the Deathworld girl who survived the canyon alone. Some were afraid, others angry that someone so small could do what they could not. Mara ignored it all. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where shadows moved strangely among the rocks. Suddenly, the alarm sirens screamed across the colony. Red lights flashed, signaling danger. Mara grabbed her plasma rifle and ran toward the source. The outer perimeter had been breached, and creatures from the wastelands were attacking. The attackers were unlike anything Mara had trained for, massive armored beasts with sharp claws and glowing red eyes. They moved faster than any human could, tearing through defenses as if they were paper. The colony's fighters rushed in panic, many falling within moments. Mara stayed low, observing, her mind calculating every movement. She noticed their pattern. The creatures attacked in pairs, leaving small gaps in their formation. A small smile formed on her lips. This was her chance, the first real test of her skills. She fired a precise shot, hitting the first creature in its exposed side. It screamed, staggering back. Mara ducked behind a broken wall, watching the others charge. Using quick, sharp movements, she dodged each attack, then struck again, one creature after another. Each strike careful, deliberate, perfect. The other fighters stared in shock. "How is she doing this?" One whispered. Mara's actions were precise, almost like a dance. She moved faster than anyone expected, using the terrain, the rocks, and the creature's own momentum against them. One of the larger beasts lunged at her, jaws wide, claws ready. Mara rolled to the side, slicing its leg with a plasma blade. The creature fell with a deafening roar, crushing a pile of rocks. Mara didn't hesitate. She pushed forward, every move confident and deadly. Minutes felt like hours, but soon, the creatures lay defeated, their bodies scattered across the battlefield. Mara stood among them, breathing heavily, her clothes torn, her hands bleeding, but her eyes were bright. She had survived, and not just survived, she had conquered. The colony fell silent, then erupted in whispers, fear, and awe mixing in every voice. Commander Raoul walked toward her, his face hard to read. "You, alone?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mara nodded, knowing this was only the beginning. From the shadows, she felt it, a new threat approaching, smarter, faster, hungrier. Mara didn't smile, but her heart raced with excitement. She had proven herself, yes, but the world outside the colony was full of dangers. Each battle would be bigger, each enemy stronger. That night, as she cleaned her weapons under the flickering light of the colony lamps, Mara thought about what lay ahead. She had survived the Dead Canyon, defeated the first real attack, and earned respect, but respect would not save her when the next challenge came. Somewhere in the dark reaches of Deathworld, eyes watched her, calculating, waiting. The Deathworld girl had made her first strike, and now, the hunters were coming. Mara tightened her grip on her rifle. The real war was only beginning. Mara had become a name on every lips in the colony. The Deathworld girl, the fighter who had survived the Dead Canyon alone and defeated the first attack. Her reputation spread fast, carried by whispers, fear, and awe, but Mara didn't care about fame. She only cared about surviving and proving herself. Life in the colony had changed. The other young fighters avoided her, some with fear, others with envy. Even Commander Raoul now watched her closely, studying her moves during training. Mara could feel their eyes, but she stayed quiet, focusing on her own strength. It was another day when the alarm sounded again. This time, the attackers were different, taller, stronger, and smarter, not just beasts, but mercenary soldiers from the outer worlds. They had heard about the Deathworld girl and came to test her. Mara moved quickly, her heart steady, her eyes scanned the rocky terrain. She studied the mercenaries' movements, looking for weaknesses. She noticed that they were arrogant, thinking a lone girl could not stop them. The first strike came from the left, a massive blow aimed to crush her. Mara ducked, rolled, and kicked a rock into the attacker's path. The soldier stumbled, giving her an opening to strike. A quick shot and he went down, silently, efficiently. The other mercenaries charged, confident, certain they would win. But Mara was faster, smarter, more agile. She used the rocks, the shadows, and the narrow paths to her advantage. Each movement precise, each strike calculated. Soon, they began to fall, one by one. The battle drew the colony's eyes, everyone watching in disbelief. "She's unstoppable," whispered one fighter. "How can a girl do this alone?" Muttered another. Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her actions spoke louder than words. One mercenary leader stepped forward, armored and tall, challenging Mara directly. "So, you are the Deathworld girl? Let's see how strong you really are," he said, his voice full of confidence. But Mara only smiled faintly. She had been underestimated before, and she knew how to use it. They clashed in the open, metal against plasma, sparks flying with each hit. Mara dodged a powerful swing and countered with a strike to his side. He grunted in pain, but pushed forward, determined to prove himself stronger. The fight continued, brutal and tense, until Mara saw her opening, a small gap in his armor, left exposed by a misstep. She acted fast, striking true, and the leader fell to the ground, defeated. The mercenaries scattered, fear spreading through them as fast as rumors about Mara. By the end of the day, the colony was buzzing, people whispering and pointing. Mara walked through the crowd silently, her weapons slung over her shoulders. She felt no pride, only focus. The battles were far from over, and every victory drew more eyes, both friendly and hostile. That night, Mara sat under the red sky of Deathworld, looking at the stars. Her thoughts were sharp and clear. She knew the outer worlds had taken notice. New enemies would come, and each would be stronger than the last. But Mara also knew something else, something powerful. Fear and respect were her allies now. Her reputation could save her life, or at least give her the advantage. Mara smiled faintly. Her journey had begun, and the world would learn that Earth's outcast fighter was no ordinary girl. From the shadows beyond the colony, watchers moved, sending messages to distant planets, a name repeated over and over. The Deathworld girl, a force growing stronger with every battle, a storm coming that no one could stop. And Mara. She tightened her grip on her weapons, ready for whatever came next. The girl who had been laughed at was now the one everyone feared, and this was only the beginning. The Deathworld sky was dark, the wind carrying a chill that hinted at the coming storm. Mara moved cautiously along the jagged cliffs outside the colony. She had heard the whispers. This time, the enemy was different, smarter, stronger, and more deadly than anything she had faced before. Reports came from scouts. A squad of elite mercenaries, trained killers from the outer worlds, were approaching, armed with advanced weapons and machines designed to hunt her down. Mara felt a thrill, not fear. She had survived the dead canyon, defeated the first attack, and earned her reputation. Now, it was time to prove that reputation was deserved. She entered the narrow canyon where the enemy was expected to strike. Her heart steady, her senses sharp. Mara set traps and used the shadows to her advantage. Every rock, every shadow, every echo could become a weapon in her hands. The first wave hit, massive armored figures charging, weapons glowing and claws ready. Mara moved like a shadow, dodging, striking, and disappearing before they could react. Her plasma rifle shot precise, her movements fast, calculated, each strike weakening the attackers. But then, the leader appeared, a towering figure in black armor, wielding a blade that seemed to hum with energy. His presence alone made the other mercenaries hesitate. Mara's eyes narrowed. She knew this was the real test, the one that would define her. The battle began, fast and brutal, sparks flying as metal clashed against plasma. Mara dodged his strikes, feeling the wind from the blows that could have cut her in half. She countered with a swift strike to his leg, but he barely flinched. Smiling under his helmet, he taunted, "You are only a girl. You cannot stop me." Mara's mind raced, every second counting. She could not overpower him with strength alone. She needed strategy, intelligence, and speed. Using the terrain, she led him into a narrow pass where his size worked against him. Rocks shifted under his feet as he chased, and Mara struck with precision, hitting weak spots in his armor. The fight raged on, intense and unforgiving. Her body ached, her muscles burned, but she did not stop. Each move was sharp, each strike deadly. The enemy's confidence faltered as he realized she was more than what everyone had believed. Suddenly, the elite squad tried to flank her from behind. Mara spun, firing at them with accuracy, dropping them one by one. Her heart pounded, her breath sharp, but she could feel it, the final moment approaching. With a daring move, Mara leaped from a ledge, landing behind the armored leader, striking his back with all her strength. He stumbled, trying to recover, but Mara pressed forward, her blade finding the final weak spot in his armor, and the leader fell, defeated. The canyon fell silent, broken only by the wind. Mara stood among the fallen enemies, her chest heaving, her eyes bright. She had survived the deadliest fight yet, and not only survived. She had triumphed. Her legend was now undeniable. But even as she looked over the battlefield, she knew this was only one victory. A greater threat lurked beyond the horizon, watching, calculating, ready to challenge her like never before. Mara smiled faintly, feeling alive, ready, unstoppable. The Deathworld girl had faced her turning point, and she had emerged stronger, smarter, and more feared. From the shadows, watchers reported back to distant worlds. She is real, and she is unstoppable. Mara's eyes scanned the horizon, the storm of challenges ahead. And she was ready. The morning sun cast red light over the Deathworld colony, painting the jagged cliffs and dust in firelight colors. Mara stood at the edge of the settlement, her eyes scanning the horizon. The battles had been brutal, the enemies relentless, but she had survived them all. Word of the Deathworld girl had spread beyond the colony, whispered in fear and or across distant planets. Mercenaries, hunters, and soldiers now knew her name. Mara, the outcast, had become a legend. Yet she did not seek glory. She sought survival, strength, and the chance to protect those who could not protect themselves. The colony's people now watched her with respect, some even with admiration. Commander Ral approached, his usual stern expression softened slightly. "You have changed everything, Mara," he said. "No one underestimates you anymore." Mara nodded, but she did not speak. Her mind was already on the next challenge. From the distance, dark shapes moved, scouts reporting unknown forces gathering beyond the cliffs. Mara's eyes narrowed. She knew the universe was vast, dangerous, and full of enemies who would not forgive her victories. She tightened her grip on her weapons, every muscle ready for action. Suddenly, an alarm blared, a warning that something new was coming, something bigger than before. Mara ran toward the perimeter, ready for the fight. The first wave arrived. Armored soldiers, alien beasts, machines of war designed to hunt her. But this time, Mara was not just a fighter, she was a strategist, a force of nature, a girl no one could stop. She moved with speed, striking enemies where they were weakest. Using the terrain, the shadows, and her unmatched skill, Mara turned the battlefield into her own design. The attackers were shocked, confused, and terrified, realizing too late that she was more than just a fighter. She was a storm, unstoppable and deadly. The battle raged through the day, sparks and fire lighting the skies. Mara fought with precision, taking down leaders and squads alike. Her reputation alone caused fear to spread among the enemy ranks. Each victory was a statement. Earth's outcast fighter was no longer weak. She was a force to be feared, respected, and remembered. By sunset, the battlefield lay silent, the enemy in retreat. Mara stood tall, battered but unbroken. Around her, the colony cheered quietly, afraid to fully speak their awe. Mara looked at them. But her eyes were already on the horizon. The war was not over. There would always be new enemies, new challenges, new battles. Yet something had changed. She was no longer alone in legend. Her name carried weight, respect, and fear across the worlds. Mara had become more than a girl from an outcast colony. She had become a symbol, proof that even the smallest, underestimated human could rise and conquer. That night, under the crimson sky, Mara looked at the stars, her heart steady. She remembered the laughter, the doubts, the underestimation, and she smiled, knowing that every enemy, every challenge, every shadow would now count her as the one they feared most. From afar, watchers recorded her name, sending it to distant worlds. Mara, the Deathworld girl, the one who turned mockery into legend, the one who proved that even an outcast could become unstoppable. And somewhere in the dark corners of the universe, new eyes watched, plotting, preparing, aware that the legend had begun. But Mara did not fear them. She was ready. She had survived the Dead Canyon, defeated the first strike, built her reputation, overcome her turning point, and now, she was a legend. The Deathworld girl had risen, and the universe would never forget her.